A very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya TV, the show to get you started early in the morning, bringing you the top national, international and sports news. Let us begin with the headlines. 44 people arrested for alleged involvement in terror activities in Baramulla in Jammu and Kashmir. Arrests after raids on suspected hideouts. Chinese and Pakistan flags and another incriminating material recovered. GST Council reaches consensus on state compensation for loss of revenue after new tax regime is implemented. Base year for calculating revenue is 2015-16. Decision on tax rates likely today. 4 hospital officials arrested after fire tragedy claims at least 20 lives in Odisha. Fire Service Department says SUM hospital did not follow safety norms. Karnataka Chief Minister says there is no water in state's reservoir. Need to save water for drinking purposes only. This after Supreme Court directs state to release 2,000 cusecs of water to Tamil Nadu daily. And Iraqi and Kurdish forces retake a dozen villages outside Mosul as they press to reclaim Iraq's second largest city from Islamic State militants. UN says 2 lakh people could be displaced in first weeks of offensive. Well, the GST Council has reached a consensus on state compensation on the first day of the 3-day meet being held in the national capital. It was also decided that the base year will be taken as 2015-16. A further discussion will be held today on GST rates.
The GST Council has reached a consensus on payment of compensation to states. On the first day of its 3-day meeting in the national capital, the Council discussed possible goods and services tax rates, including a 4-slab structure of 6, 12, 18 and 26%. The lower rates are for essential items and highest band for luxury goods.
So a discussion on this issue has started, presentation has been made. Some more documents with regard to this would be circulated to the members. The broad approach has been that the rate structure should be such that it does not lead to any further CPI inflation.
A consensus was also reached on the base year for calculating the revenue for a state, that would be 2015-16. Also, a secular growth rate of 14% would be taken for calculating the likely revenue of each state in the first 5 years of implementation of GST.
It was finally agreed that a 14% secular rate of growth would be treated as a possible growth rate as far as revenue is concerned.
The Finance Minister also said that the states getting lower revenue than this would be compensated by the centre. Further discussion on 5 alternatives for the GST rate structure would continue today on day 2 of the meet. The Finance Ministry has set a November 22 deadline for building consensus on all issues in the Council for a rollout of the new tax regime from April 1, 2017. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Big story coming in from Jammu and Kashmir, where the security forces have arrested 44 people for alleged involvement in terror activities. Now, the arrests have been made after arrests on suspected hideouts of militants in Baramulla, but a recovery of Chinese flags along with incriminating material has also been made. The army spokesperson said that over 700 houses were searched in a span of 12 hours on 17th of October in an extensive search operation in the town of Baramulla. The army says a large quantity of incriminating materials such as petrol bombs, Chinese and Pakistani flags, Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed letterhead pads, unauthorized mobile phones and seditious anti-national publicity material was seized. He said that the operation was jointly carried out by the teams of Army, Police, BSF and CRPF in 10 sensitive localities. Now, they say that the localities were used as safe havens for terrorists. And Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar has clarified that the centre has no information on whether cross-LOC surgical strikes were undertaken by the army in the past, as no messages about such assaults were conveyed to the previous governments. Now, this after the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs was briefed on the surgical strikes carried out by the army on terror launch pads last month. Well, the clarification comes after some opposition MPs quoted Jaishankar saying that the army had carried out target-specific, limited-caliber counter-terrorist operations across the line of control in the past as well. But this was for the first time that the government had gone public about it in remarks that appeared to contradict the Defence Minister's claim. Now, during the 2.5-hour meeting, Vice Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Bipin Rawat also gave details of the strikes targeting terrorist launch pads across the line of control. News from Himachal now, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated 3 hydropower projects in the state on Tuesday. He also addressed a public rally in Mandi district of the state where he spoke on the recent surgical strikes in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, Modi likened the Indian Army's covert operation to Israel's exploits, adding that the Indian forces have shown that they are no less than anybody.
आजकल पूरे देश में हमारी सेना के पराक्रम की चर्चा हो रही है। पहले कभी हम इजराइल ने ऐसा किया सुनते थे, लेकिन देश ने देखा कि भारत की सेना भी किसी से कम नहीं है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauding the Indian Army at a huge Parivartan rally in Mandi, Himachal Pradesh on Tuesday. Referring to last month's surgical strikes on terrorist bases in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the Prime Minister said the Army's valor is being discussed across the country these days. Modi also used the opportunity to credit his government for resolving the issue of equalizing pension payouts for retired soldiers, which he said had been pending for 40 years.
One rank, one pension, 40 साल से लटका हुआ सवाल, देश के लिए मर मिटने वालों का सवाल, ये सरकार है जो देश की सेना का गौरव करने वाली उस काम को पूर्ण कर दिया। और आज जहां भी जाता हूं, न सिर्फ फौजी लेकिन फौज के परिवारजन मुझे इतने आशीर्वाद देते हैं कि मुझे ऐसे लोगों के लिए कुछ और करने का हमेशा एक नया उत्साह मिलता है, ताकत मिलती है, मेरा हौसला बुलंद होता है।
At the rally, Modi also targeted the ruling Congress government in Himachal Pradesh ahead of the assembly polls in the state next year.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने मुख्यमंत्री दिए तो कोई पानी के लिए अपने आप को खपा दिया, तो किसी ने सड़क के लिए खपा दिया, और भी लोग आए जिन्होंने अपने लिए न जाने क्या-क्या खपा दिया।
The Prime Minister was in the Hill State to inaugurate 3 mega hydropower projects. With a generating capacity of 1,732 megawatts, the 3 projects are equipped with generating equipment supplied and commissioned by Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some other news. The Goa declaration of the BRICS summit failed to put India's concern on terrorism in a proper perspective. Well, this prompted External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj to make a statement that the conglomeration of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa cannot shy away from taking a firm stand on this major issue. Now, without naming China, she said terrorism should not be tolerated for a narrow agenda of a few nations.
After the conclusion of the BRICS and BIMSTEC summits in Goa, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj inaugurated the BRICS Media Summit in Delhi on Tuesday. The summit will discuss the media-related issues and approaches of member countries. Swaraj dwelled on the need to sensitize media personnel on the issue of terrorism, especially in the context of Pakistan.
There is a developing consensus that it cannot be business as usual. We must be prepared to extract costs for those who sponsor and support terrorists, who provide them sanctuary, and who, despite their own claimed victimhood, continue to make the false distinction between good and bad terrorists. BRICS has always been global in its approach, and today there is no bigger global challenge than state-sponsored and state-protected terrorism.
In remarks aimed at Chinese support for Pakistan, Sushma Swaraj said BIMSTEC had sent out a strong signal on collaborating for development, even as it rejected Pakistan's attempt to block connectivity among member nations and cripple SAARC.
These are nations who are actively promoting connectivity, cooperation, and context amongst themselves. Their interface with the BRICS has a message in itself. This is that a world changing in a positive direction, as reflected by the BRICS, has its regional expression in a community like BIMSTEC that is able to visualize a prosperous collective future. There cannot be a greater contrast with those who reject even trade and connectivity for political reasons. Very warm welcome.
The media summit marks the end of the present series of dialogue among BRICS nations this year. On the issue of terror, the BRICS declaration named Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups, but avoided groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba that affect India and its neighborhood. But India's efforts at the summit indicate that the government will persist with its determination to create a consensus on both terror and its sponsors in the region.
BIMSTEC countries have given a very positive signal for mutual cooperation, and Pakistan must learn from it. But in BRICS, China also must understand, without condemning the acts of terrorism, BRICS countries cannot achieve what they wanted to. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person Junaid in Delhi.
And India has said that it will extend all help to Myanmar in setting up democratic institutions for ensuring stability in the country during transition phase. Now, this was conveyed by President Pranab Mukherjee during his meeting with the Myanmarese State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi. Now, Suu Kyi is on her first state visit to India after assuming charge, called on President at the Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday. Suu Kyi also met with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, during which the visiting leader discussed how India could support Myanmar's agenda of national reconciliation. Suu Kyi also sought assistance in areas of agriculture, capacity building, job creation, infrastructure and healthcare. Sushma Swaraj, meanwhile, conveyed condolences on behalf of the people of India over the loss of lives of many Myanmar police and army personnel in the recent terrorist attacks in Rakhine state of Myanmar, as also over the ferry tragedy on Chindwin River. News from Odisha now, where 20 people were killed in a massive fire tragedy on Monday. Now, while the state and the centre governments have ordered detailed inquiry into the incident, initial reports have confirmed that the hospital was not following fire safety guidelines. Now, 4 hospital officials have also been arrested in connection with the tragedy. Odisha police on Tuesday arrested 4 officials of the SUM hospital in Bhubaneswar a day after a massive fire tragedy claimed at least 20 lives. The hospital superintendent, electrical maintenance engineer, junior electrical engineer and fire safety officer were arrested after Odisha government filed 2 FIRs alleging safety negligence against the hospital. Meanwhile, the hospital management has denied lapses on their part.
Completely accident है. हम लोग हमेशा पॉजिटिव में हैं. हम लोग का कोई कारण इसमें असुविधा का कारण कोई नहीं है.
The last safety audit was done approximately 4 weeks back. I feel that if we had procrastinated, if our evacuation protocol had not been so rapid and so well concerted, the number of deaths could have been much higher.
However, the Fire Service Department in its initial report has observed that the fire safety norms as per the 2013 guidelines were not followed by the hospital authorities. According to Odisha government, only 3 corporate hospitals in Bhubaneswar, Cuttack and Puri have fire safety certificates. The list does not include the name of SUM hospital.
As of now, we are making a very objective inquiry and inspection of the whole everything that has happened. Certainly, I've come to my own findings. I've got my own findings, and I'll be submitting a report to the government in that light.
Meanwhile, over 100 patients were shifted elsewhere for treatment. More than 500 patients were trapped inside the building when the fire broke out on Monday. The fire is suspected to have been triggered by an electric short circuit in the dialysis ward on the first floor of the hospital. Many patients were rescued by breaking window panes. Mostly victims suffocated to death after inhaling smoke from the air conditioning ducts. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Well, in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. Stay with us for more news.
The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
How would you really convince the consumers who start comparing your government with Manmohan Singh's government when it comes to the pricing of petrol, pricing of diesel?
Statistics is saying 50% of the benefit we have passed on to the consumer. I have not hid anything in Parliament.
The scheme talks about one gas connection per every household. The opposition, it sees it as a political strategy.
Who prevented them to create this kind of welfare scheme? Is it a sin to think about poor?
Watch To The Point with Petroleum Minister Dharmendra Pradhan only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back after the break. Now, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari will meet Algeria's President and Prime Minister today and discuss with them the anti-terror cooperation between India and Algeria and a host of other bilateral issues. Earlier on Tuesday, Ansari had met and discussed with other Algerian leaders the ways to revamp the bilateral engagements and take the ties to a new level. On the second day of his visit to Algeria, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari on Tuesday held talks with Algeria's President of the National People's Assembly, Mohamed Larbi Ould Khalifa, and President of the Council of Nations, Abdelkader Ben Salah. During the meet, the two countries decided to bolster the economic ties by identifying new areas of cooperation, though indications are that no formal agreements may be in offing as of now. The two nations also discussed the common approaches to tackle the menace of terror. It should be noted that Algeria was ravaged by terror groups like FIS and the Islamic Army of Salvation till 1997, and most of these terrorists were trained in the Afpak region. There was mutual concern defining terror as crime against religion.
Cooperation in the hydrocarbon sector, as you all know, Algeria is very rich in hydrocarbons, so cooperation in the hydrocarbon sector. An idea that we've been discussing since we were all on the aircraft, the possibility of cooperation in the fertilizer sector, then cooperation in the pharma sector and in the area of space.
Ansari also visited Tipaza, a UNESCO World Heritage Site located 70 kilometers west of Algiers. Vice President also showed keen interest going around this ancient site that showcases the glorious past of Algeria. This is Chetan Datta and Sandeep Yash's report from Algiers, Algeria for Rajya Sabha TV. News from down south. Well, the Supreme Court has directed Karnataka to release the 2,000 cusecs of Kaveri water per day to Tamil Nadu till further orders. Now, reacting to the order, Chief Minister Siddaramaiah said that there was no water in the state's reservoirs. Now, Karnataka has maintained that there is a paucity of water in the state due to drought and they will have to save water for drinking purposes only. Earlier, the Apex Court retained its direction to Karnataka to release the 2,000 cusecs of Kaveri water per day to Tamil Nadu till further orders and asked the two state governments to ensure peace and harmony, saying that citizens should not become law unto themselves. Meanwhile, the Kaveri Supervisory Committee that visited Tamil Nadu and Karnataka had observed in their findings, which were submitted to the Supreme Court, that both the states were in distress. The water levels in the reservoirs of Karnataka have dropped further since their previous visit. More stories from around the nation in Nationwide. Continuing with the ongoing tussle between a Delhi Lieutenant Governor and the Delhi government, Najib Jung has ordered transfer of Secretary to Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and posted him as the registrar of a private university. However, the AAP government, which has been at loggerheads with the Lieutenant Governor's office over transfers and posting of its officers, has not launched an attack publicly this time. Trinamool Congress MP and Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's nephew Abhishek Banerjee has been hospitalized with serious injuries in a car accident on the way from Murshidabad to Kolkata. 10 policemen of the MP's convoy were also injured in the accident. The Patiala House Court in Delhi dismissed a complaint against Textile Minister Smriti Irani for allegedly giving false information on her educational qualification to the Election Commission. The court observed that the case was filed to needlessly harass the Union Minister. Let's get you some international stories now. Well, the campaign to retake Mosul from Islamic State is underway. Iraqi troops are moving up from the south, where their Kurdish allies are also approaching from the east in a two-pronged campaign, which began on Monday. Now, the United States, that is helping the forces with airstrikes, says that 10 villages have already been captured. However, despite the likely defeat of the Islamic State, sectarian and ethnic hatred runs deep, and people in the city face a frightening and uncertain future.
Columns of tanks and trucks lumbering their way towards Mosul. The Kurdish Peshmerga and Iraqi forces continuing their advance, clearing villages of Islamic State militants. The US-backed coalition says it has driven Islamic State out of 10 villages. But the 5,000-odd IS state fighters in Mosul are not giving up without a fight. They are unleashing suicide vehicle bombs in various parts of the city and intermittently firing on coalition-armed vehicles. They're also setting oil barrels aflame, sending thick funnels of black smoke to try to screen them from airstrikes.
Mosul will be a difficult fight, and there will be advances and there will be setbacks, but I am confident that just as ISIL's been defeated in communities across Iraq, ISIL will be defeated in Mosul as well, and that will be another step towards their ultimate destruction.
Close to 5,000 US military personnel are advising Kurdish and Iraqi army units and helping target airstrikes. While a senior Peshmerga general says retaking the city will take 2 months, no one is really certain. Sectarian and ethnic divisions are complicating the situation, with a mistrust between the prominently Sunni population of Mosul and the Shia government forces. Amnesty International has raised the possibility of future reprisals against Sunnis during the battle.
Speed should be the key element of this operation. The sooner the better, to avoid a major humanitarian exodus or complexities that nobody needs. So really nobody has a definitive time when it will end, but I think there is a clear understanding. We should do it, not in a hasty way or a rushed way, but in a planned way, to do it as soon as possible.
The greatest concern for the international agencies are some 7 lakh people believed to remain in the city in northern Iraq. IS is reported to be preventing people from freeing the city and using them as human shields, directing some of them towards buildings likely to be targeted by airstrikes. The United Nations is working to create new refugee sites outside Mosul.
Despite that we have been preparing for months, that we've been pre-positioning food, we, like the other actors, are worried about that the circumstances on the ground could make it really difficult to have humanitarian access and maybe make all of these plans that we've been coming up inoperable. So our concern is that we get to the people, that people can get out safely.
The oil-rich capital of Nineveh province, Mosul, was Iraq's second largest city when Islamic State militants overran it in June 2014. Its capture signaled the rise of IS as a major force. Hence, its intended recapture will be a huge symbolic victory for Haider al-Abadi and Western powers fighting Islamic State. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
News from the US now, where President Barack Obama has told Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump to stop whining as he rejected his claim that next month's White House election will be rigged. Now, speaking at a news conference at the White House Rose Garden, Obama said that Trump's attempts to discredit a poll before it has even taken place was unprecedented for a US presidential candidate. He further said that the claims demonstrated that Trump lacked the leadership or toughness to be the president. But he warned that the charges which Trump repeated to cheers at a rally in Colorado later in the day would undermine the nation's purest expression of democracy, a popular vote respected by the vanquished as well as the victors. Trump is facing sinking poll numbers and accusations of sexual assault.
I have never seen in my lifetime or in modern political history, any presidential candidate trying to discredit the elections and the election process before votes have even taken place. It's unprecedented. It happens to be based on no facts. I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes. And if he got the most votes, then it would be my expectation of Hillary Clinton to offer a gracious concession speech and pledge to work with him in order to make sure that the American people benefit from an effective government.
Let's get you some more international news in World Wrap. Russian and Syrian warplanes on Tuesday halted their strikes on Syria's besieged city of Aleppo in preparation for a temporary truce. Moscow on Monday announced a humanitarian pause between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Thursday to allow civilians and militants safe passage out of the city. At that time, Russian and Syrian militaries will desist from any offensive actions. An Ebola vaccine developed by Canadian researchers and considered by the WHO to be the first effective treatment against the virus will soon start a new phase of clinical trials. The vaccine's safety and effectiveness will be tested in volunteers in November. Well, according to the World Health Organization, Ebola has killed up to 90% of those infected during some outbreaks. Saudi Arabia has executed a member of the royal family for murder in a rare case involving one of the thousands of members of the House of Saud. Prince Turk bin Saud Al Kabir was put to death in the capital Riyadh for shooting dead a friend during a brawl. Kabir was the 134th person to be put to death this year. Amnesty International says that the kingdom carried out at least 158 death sentences in 2015, making it the third most prolific executioner after Iran and Pakistan. Time for some sporting action in Sports Beat. Indian team dished out a stunning performance to make it to the semi-finals of the 2016 Kabaddi World Cup after registering an emphatic 69-18 victory over England in their last Group A match on Tuesday in Ahmedabad. India finished the group with 21 points in 5 matches with 1 loss and 4 victories. The Supreme Court has dismissed a review petition filed by the BCCI to look into the verdict passed by the court in the Lodha panel logjam. The Cricket Board had asked the court to consider a review of the verdict where the court had accepted the Lodha panel recommendations, consisting a wide range of suggestions for the board to implement. An Indian shuttler Saina Nehwal has been appointed as a member of the International Olympic Committee's Athletes Commission. In a rare honour for an Indian sportsperson, Saina Nehwal received a letter to the effect from the IOC President Thomas Bach. The Athletes Commission is chaired by Angela Rogero and comprises of 9 vice presidents and 10 other members. Well, that's all in this edition of news. Thanks for watching.